Jordan Peterson, Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro. These are just a few of the popular names over at the Daily Wire who are known for giving out advice. Problem is that some of that advice will cause you to lose your relationship. Hello, hello. Welcome to Apex Underground pod class. We're going to go cover some advice given out by the Daily Wire. And I understand as I talk about these things, I don't have anything personal against Jordan Peterson, for example, or Ben Shapiro. In fact, I like a lot of their stuff. So I'm not here to just like dunk on people who are more popular than I am. All right. It's just that the Daily Wire and a lot of those pundits there are relied on by a lot of people really for advice. People who are traditionally Christian and who want to follow, people want to follow that whole tradition, traditional Christian marriage model. That's tends to be who they turn to, and they look to these pundits and these people for advice. And I wouldn't consider any of them experts in the area of relationships, and that's to include Jordan Peterson, who's a well accomplished psychotherapist. But not all psychotherapists understand relationship dynamics. And as you're going to see when I run through some of these video clips that we're going to look at least from a show that is able to catch, there's advice that they give out that's just not necessarily good. It's going to get you divorced, it's going to get you broken up with. All right. And so what's the nature what's the nature of advice out there that's considered acceptable? Think about that for a second. Remember, we're steering towards bonobos, right? We're no longer we're chimpanzees, okay? We're a version of chimps. Those of you guys follow my evolutionary psychology more or less take on things. We're a patriarchal chimpanzee version, right? Human beings are. We're thinking chimps, but we're steering more towards bonobos because we have safety and security, and the survival need for masculinity is reduced in modern culture. So we are steering towards more of a bonobo society rather quickly. All right. Now, we've, of course, we have our instincts that have been instilled, and it's going to take several generations for those to alter or change. So right now, we're not that much different than we were, couple thousand years ago, right? In terms of our instincts. And this is why women respond to masculinity and to men with leadership qualities and the way that they do. What we're attracted to is the way that it is because of these instincts. They have not transformed all that much, but from a social conditioning perspective, though, we're trying to move towards a bonobo version. When I say bonobo, what do I mean? I mean a female-centered version of society where we appeal to female sensibilities. Guys are less masculine, so they are acting more like females. All right, which much to the distress of the women that have to date them. Men are not as masculine as they used to be. This is a problem for everybody. And of course, women are more or less what's being marketed to. The biggest consumers out there are women. They are the ones who buy the most stuff. And also, relationship instability causes both men and women and children, of course, to buy more things. And so you got to follow the money too. So we're no longer in a society where relationship stability is good for people who make the most amount of money out there off of you guys. All right. Think of your big box stores, your Amazons, things like that. Right. Being stable and having a stable, happy, healthy family, happy, healthy relationship. This is not conducive for the marketplace anymore. This is why what's allowed to get pushed through as advice are things that will keep you unstable and things that will cause you to fail. Now, I don't think that there's some cabal out there and that the pundits, the people I mentioned here, like I don't think Ben Shapiro or Jordan Peterson is part of some like marketing scam or some Illuminati society, and they're just offering advice that's going to purposefully, cause you to fail in your marriage or to fail in your relationship. I'm not saying that at all. But what is considered acceptable and what gets the likes and what's allowed to be pushed through, even on platforms and stuff, are going to be things that are acceptable for women and that give women power. All right. And that's the point I'm getting to here, is that when you look at advice out there for relationships, right? When you look at how am I going to conduct myself in the dating market? How am I going to conduct myself in the relationship market? What's popular and what's allowed to be pushed through and what makes give people the feels and hit the likes. And, because people are not smart, people are generally stupid when it comes to these things and their entertainment. Okay. Individuals are smart. Hopefully you guys are smart listening to me, but we all have dumb moments, right? But as a collective, people are dumb. And what is it that they're doing, right? They're going towards what makes them give them the feels. And what gives them the feels are things that empower the women. And that's just the way it is. And so the advice that's acceptable gives women power. Okay. Any advice that gives men power or is perceived to take away power from women in the sexual marketplace, that is seen as bad advice. That is seen as unpopular advice. And so when you look at traditional conservative advice from the Daily Wire, they have advice that is different or counterculture to, let's say, mainstream. Well, if we want to put another side, the kind of the liberal, more woke sort of advice that they would give for relationships, right? So they have a counter narrative to this other narrative, but that counter narrative, and that's being pushed out by churches, being pushed out by traditional conservatives, still is in the theme of empowering women. Now, someone's going to hear this and be like, what? You don't think empowering women is good? Well, sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's a necessary thing. Sometimes women need to be empowered so they make good decisions, so that they, can have their happiness and have their goals met and have their safety met. Mainly, like, women need to be empowered for their own safety, but like unchecked power isn't good. You see, unlimited power isn't good. So if you can't just continue to stack power and empower women with no counterbalance of empowerment for men. And you couldn't do the same thing the other way. Like, as a man, I would not want unlimited power. It sounds good, but I would be if I had unlimited power, I'd give up some power, right, in order to get sort of checked, because I'm not always going to make the best choice, right? You're not either, listening to me. So it's nobody is perfect. Nobody always makes the best choices. We need another source to check and balance us a little bit, but male power and leadership in relationships, that's the key to success. So sometimes, yes, we need to take power away from women, all right, in our dynamic and understanding, not in order to harm women, but in order to keep them safe and happy in relationships. So leadership can be established, and also that those certain things like taking care of your partner and taking care of your family, and a lot of these things need to be established, on the side of the males. So there's a power dynamic and a polarity and a balance that exists between men and women. It has to exist in relationships. And the advice that's acceptable from places like the Daily Wire is going to tend to be things that empower women and are either neutral or actually disempower males. All right. And that's what's going to be allowed to be pushed through. And so if you're watching this stuff, if you think, well, I'm a conservative, I'm not one of these other, leftists or something, I'm going to binge watch my favorite podcasters over at the Daily Wire and drink their Kool-Aid, follow their advice for relationships. I'm going to be good. I'm going to be safe. I don't have to use my brain in my head. I can just follow things and drill on myself. I just described like 80% of everybody. If that's what you think you're going to do, and then you're going to end up not divorced, and you end up not in trouble with your relationships, got news for you, man. That's not going to be what happens. All right. You're probably going to end up being screwed. All right. Because there's certain key components from that advice that's being dished out that's missing. And some of the advice is outright bad or wrong. Okay. And so that's what I'm going to sort of dive into today. And it's not to slam anybody over there. I've mentioned Ben Shapiro's name a couple of times. I actually like that guy a lot. I like his take on things. All right. I don't consider him a relationship expert. I wouldn't be asking him advice necessarily of what I should do with my girlfriend, but I mean, other things like he's got a good take, especially like he's a great debater, arguer. There's value that Jordan Peterson has. Some of my friends and colleagues don't like him. I'm okay with him. I think he's got all right stuff. There's not a single person I've mentioned that I have like hate towards or I think is bad. You shouldn't watch them, but you just have to put on that critical thinking cap when you're listening to advice that people that you admire give, but maybe that's not their area of expertise. And that's to include me, right? Like I have my area of expertise, but there's other areas that I might be limited on, and if I'm given my take or opinion on that, take it with a grain of salt, right? Like, I mean, I say take everybody's opinion with a grain of salt and use critical thinking skills, but particularly if it's not something I would consider that person an expert on, even like I said, even Jordan Peterson being I would consider him a world-renowned psychotherapist. He's very accomplished. His work has been very good. I don't consider him though a relationship and relationship dynamic expert. I just don't. All right. His area of expertise, in my opinion, isn't that. He's got some valuable opinions. He's got good takes. But there's certain components that are missing. And in fact, by the end of this video, I'm going to cover 3 components that you need to know about that are the foundations or pillars of healthy relationships. And, if you follow those things and you use these 3 things I'm going to give you, it will help you navigate the sexual marketplace. And when you get advice from your pastor, church leader, Daily Wire pundit, whoever, I'm more speaking now to the conservatives, right? I mean, that's kind of like where, a lot of this stuff is coming from, where you guys might be watching it. But whoever you're getting advice from, if you use these 3 rules, or these, I call them rules, but 3 pillars of healthy relationship that I'm going to give you today, that's going to be a good guideline, right? You'll know what's missing from that advice, or you'll know if it's bad also, right? So it gives you some tools there. So I'm going to walk away with tools. And if you got any questions, of course, throw it in the chat. If you put a super or one of those stickers or one of those things that helps the algorithms, I'm not trying to take your money. This is a free show. All right. But it helps me out. Quick announcement too, before I jump into the clip is at 3:00 today. Part 3 of my frame series is going on an Apex Inner Game channel. You need to be subscribed there. You need to, hit that notification bell. There's a lot of really good action-packed, shorter form content that's free, and it's designed to help you out. I give a lot of information out for free that's actionable, that's good. So a large majority of you guys will not need to hire me for anything because, you have the free information here. I've had a couple of guys actually recently jump on my Twitter, drop me a DM and say, hey, thanks for all the free information you give out on your channels because it saved my life, saved my relationship. I got a couple of guys who are in long-term relationships right now with, healthy, happy with, girls that they're doing, attractive women. They're doing really well. They were not doing well before, and my channel, just the free stuff alone helped them. So make sure you're on also my list, get on my email list thing, right? Newsletter, put out free content there. I'm going to find ways to give you guys stuff for free to help you. The reason I do that is because, I make a living doing consults and coaching work through programs or individual appointments. But when I get you on that appointment, I would like you to have foundational stuff. Now, if you don't, that's okay. It's your money, but I'd really like you to have some foundational things so that I don't spend your time, your session, or the time that we're doing coaching in groups on some basic stuff. I would like you to be actioning things out in the world, trying to achieve your goals, trying to achieve what you want with your relationships, your dating life, your sex life, and then coming to me with, okay, here's some obstacles I have. Here's some ways I'm thinking and approaching things, and we can deal with higher level problems. That's a lot easier to do. You'll get better results that way. Again, you can come in with no experience and that's fine. My year-long mastermind program, I have guys who've come in with zero experience, very little knowledge about me, and in a year they were killing it. Okay, but that's like drinking out of a fire hose. So the free stuff is here for you, but I need your guys' help to push this out into other people. This is Apex Underground Podcast because I'm shadow banned. The things that I say sometimes take power away from women in the sexual marketplace, not because I don't want to empower women, but it's because power needs to be balanced and needs to be polarity. Right. And so sometimes a lot of times the guy has to have that power. Sometimes the woman has power too. There's a polarity there. It's nobody has 100% power in either sense. All right. If anything, individuals have power and agency over themselves. Right. And so some of the advice I give is not considered empowering to women. And then they consider that bad, misogynist, abusive, whatever. Algorithms will consider it borderline content, won't push it out. Okay. If I was a different demographic, maybe they might, but they just don't. So you need to help me. You need to, by pushing my stuff out, suggest me to people who might need it. You guys might have friends or people out there that are struggling with this shit. You don't need to get into a red pill discussion with them. Just shoot them my channel and let them binge watch. Shoot them a video that applies to their situation. There's a lot of guys that have been helped that way. So, we got Zach here. Thank you. Thank Paul for the free content. It helps a ton. Thank you, man. I really do appreciate it. Diamond says, I think a lot of people confuse power with total control. They do. Yeah, they do. And so it's this idea of giving up some power is bad. Well, it's not. You know what I mean? Like if I'm hiring a coach, or if I'm talking to a friend of mine who's an accountability partner, let's say that friend is let's use working out. Okay, I got a lot of knowledge with fitness, but if I have someone helping me, coaching me when it comes to the fitness side of it, or jujitsu, for example, I'm giving some of my power to that person so that they can lead me, guide me, or in a certain way. I'm not giving up all my power, but I give up some of that power to that coach or that person. I take a I'll say subordinate or following more or less role. Now, not in every aspect of my life, like that's crazy, but when that particular relationship, that's what I do. Right. And so there's some cases where, you don't, giving up power in a calculated way is part of life. It's part of, interacting with other people. Okay. It's part of what you do. It doesn't make you less of an alpha male inherently or anything crazy, but in relationships, generally the man has to lead the relationships, which means that the woman needs to give up some of that power. And that means she needs to trust a guy. In fact, today's video at 3:00 over at the Apex Inner Game channel, very short. I'm going to talk about power dynamic and dominance and how that fits in with frame. So check that one out, because this is really important. That's an important aspect that doesn't really get conveyed so well in some of the traditional conservative, groups and paradigms, and with like places like the Daily Wire. Hey, Zach asks or says, Paul, wouldn't mind volunteering my time to be a mod or anything. Need help technology wise. Like I said, thanks, bro. Because I will interrupt the show too much and I already ramble on enough. I'm not going to do anything about that right now, but after the show, I'll mod you. I'll throw you as a mod here, man. So when you're in, you can get rid of my weirdos that sometimes show up in the chat. So thanks, brother. I appreciate the volunteer. Thanks for the super too, man. Like I said, I'm glad to help you guys out any way I can, dude. And so, okay, let's get into that. Enough rambling on. Let's get into this thing here. So I'm going to show some video clips. Let's go to share screen. All right. So this was a video titled Secrets to Successful Marriage. You know what? I need to put it in the show description. I will do that. Okay. At some point. Let's go to that. All right. So Secrets to a Successful Marriage. That's the title of the video. And so then they're on some panel from the Daily Wire. This thing has what is it? It has 2.3 million views. So 2.3 million people watch this thing to get advice. Problem is some of it just sucks, it's not good. I'm again, I'm not, I would love the opportunity, which I'll probably never get. But I would love the opportunity to debate any of these guys on this. Some of these guys like Ben Shapiro, like, come on, guy's a better debater than I am. But that's if we're dealing with his topics of expertise. If we're dealing with my topic of expertise, truth is truth. And so they're not going to get out of some of the things I have to say here. Just not. Okay. So I'm not going to go through this entire 24-minute video and bore everybody with it, but I'm going to cover, let's see, some of it. So, and I'm not covering, and to be fair too, not everybody on this panel had a bad thing to say. I'm just kind of picking out the bad stuff because look, the thing is the bad stuff the bad stuff that you are unaware about is what is going to cause you to fail. Like sometimes there's little things that if you don't have this stuff more or less figured out, solved, or at least a part of your mental paradigm, and it doesn't show up in the behavior, you're going to fail. Like it doesn't matter how much good advice you follow. There's certain pillars. And for example, one of those is desire. And we'll get into that. There's certain pillars that if you don't have these things in order in your relationships, if they're ignored, if they're not part of your mental paradigm, if they're not part of hers, the relationship's going to fail. Like there's no question it's going to fail. So, and it's these little things or it's the things you're not aware of that does it. It's like, with your health, it's like you could be doing all the right things, but then maybe you're not watching your cholesterol or something and you die early from heart attack, right? It's the silent killer that'll get you. It's that silent killer that will cause you to be dateless, sexless, losing half your shit in a divorce. That's the problem. Like it's obvious when some bad advice comes out, it's obviously bad advice. Nobody cares. Like, you know what I mean? That's just internet fodder. We could just dunk on people and, try to make ourselves feel better or whatever, right? That because we think we know more stuff. It's when the advice seems good or is kind of good, but then is missing components and the stuff you're unaware about. If you're not aware of it, it causes you to catastrophically fail. That's the sneak attack. All right. So we're going to look at that. So play this part here. Hopefully you guys can hear.
Someone named Pam asked, what is a man? And I'm going to answer the question by going after Dr. Peterson.
So if you guys can't hear, let me know.
I actually don't think it's a good question. And
this is Jordan
I'll
Peterson.
tell you why. I mean,
you guys can hear, right? Someone comment and tell me.
Happy is a pretty low goal.
Happy
first of all, there's going to be lots of times in your marriage where you are seriously not happy. And sometimes that's going to be because you're having conflict with your partner, but sometimes it's going to be because all hell's broken loose around you. And then if you judge the success of your marriage on your happiness, then the same thing happens if you judge your success in life on the basis of your happiness. What do you have when
happiness
it's nothing but suffering? And that's going to be plenty of your life. And so the whole orientation of that question in that sense is wrong.
Okay, so I'm going to stop that there. So, and I'll go through the whole thing. I don't want to get dinged on a copyright strike or anything, right? All right, let's pause that there though. So what he's saying is the question is wrong. That, the question of what do you need to do to be happy in a marriage? Like you shouldn't ask that question. So Jordan Peterson's paradigm and what you have with a lot of it expresses what's very common with traditional conservative ideas around marriage. Now, I'm not talking truly traditional necessarily. That there's arguments to be made there. I mean, like marriage has been around for a lot of different reasons. Usually resources, all right, is and putting families together and resources together had nothing to do with actual love and all of the things that we consider relationship values today. There's the Greeks had different words for love, and a pragma relationship was one that was pragmatic. It was a type of love for your wife or partner that you did because it was pragmatic. And then eros was your burning desire. So they didn't necessarily always, in all cultures, marry together desire and burning desire with a dutiful transactional marriage. But today in 2023, we don't want transactional relationships. Not really. We get into them. In fact, most people get into them. And they get into transactional relationships that are not based in desire. And understand, by definition, when I say transactional relationships, I mean relationships where desire is more or less put in the background. And what's in the foreground is, does this work for me in all of these boxes I need to check? I'm going to spend, I'm going to lose something with my effort, time, energy, cost, right? Opportunity cost. I'm going to spend something, lose something, and then receive something in return in this relationship. Is what I'm getting in return everything I'm looking for, all the checklist things. Okay. And then desire and emotional attachment to your partner is way in the background. All right. When I say not a non-transactional relationship, a relationship based on desire, okay, or some have said genuine desire, okay, what that means is that the desire and the emotions and the attachment, that's in the forefront. Okay, so your feelings and care for your partner and the natural neurochemical attachment and sexual desire and wants and feelings of wanting to be with that person, that's in the forefront, and transactional needs are in the background, meaning that if some of these transactional needs get compromised, the feelings and wants to be there and the desire and the sexual desire, those things are still fighting and hanging on in the forefront. And I'm not saying that transactional needs never get to be met. We see relationships all the time where transactionally the relationship doesn't work out, even though genuine burning desire is present, but it doesn't work out because of the transactional needs not being able to be met. So example could be, two people are unwilling or unable to move to be closer geographically, right? Or their goals, like their life goals, are different. They're not willing to compromise or let go of some of those, or their social conditioning and paradigm is off. That happens all the time. Women lose the guy that they genuinely desire because they have been fulfilled in their head of a social paradigm, and part of their I just kicked my camera. Part of their goals, involve their own personal success and career success and educational success that don't fit within the paradigm of a relationship with the guy that they desire, maybe. And then they lose that guy, right? So people lose the genuine desire relationships over transactional issues all the time. But the point is that the desire is in the forefront. The desire is the primary. The desire is the driver, not the transactional aspect of the relationship where the desire is on the back burner. And as we know, for hypergamy, it's kind of it's a little bit more black and white in a way, right? Like if you're not her best in terms of desire, she's going to lose desire. Whatever ounce of desire she had for you then was based in hope, right? Or fantasy that she could pretend, that things will be better in the future, or things would be better with somebody else. And that's what keeps anything hanging on with her. The desire, she doesn't see you as the best. We know from what we know about women in hypergamy and their wiring, right, that it's just not going to work for that as far as desire is concerned. So anyway, getting into it, Jordan Peterson's advice there is, not like is not to worry about happiness. Okay, like happiness, it's fun. It sticks to, again, what traditional conservatives, people who claim that today, consider a dutiful marriage, right? Being in a place of duty, like you have to be the dutiful husband, right? The marriage based on like, responsibility, okay? Instead of being happy, like happy is not a measure, according to Jordan Peterson. That's a bad question to ask. Are you happy? Well, that tells me something. And, hey, God bless that man. I hope he's doing all right. And I hope his family's okay. But that doesn't sound like a person who's a happy person. That sounds like a person, and I don't mean to make it personal on him, but it sounds like a person who is doing things that make him feel valuable, but generally walks around not a happy guy. And that's too bad. Okay. Because I think, and this is why I focus on inner game, and it's not just a thought based, without evidence. I believe that, okay, your value that you have in yourself and what you provide to the world is greatly increased. And in fact, you're able to demonstrate that value more when you're happy. When you have feelings of happiness and satisfaction and excitement and good feelings driving your value, it's longer sustaining, longer lasting, and you can make a greater impact. If you're working 12, 15, 20, 16 hours a day because on your thing that you provide value to the world, because you love it so much and you're happy. And yeah, there's parts where it's grueling. There's times where you get tired. Sometimes you do things you don't want to do, but generally speaking, your drive to get what, you're going after and to make that dent in the universe, that drive makes you happy. You find happiness in that. You're going to do that. You're going to be immensely successful, more than likely. You're going to put in that work. It's going to be no problem. If you're miserable when you're trying to do those things, you're not going to be as impactful. You're not going to do as well. Now, some people use misery as a driver to be successful. They do. It happens. Okay. They achieve financial success because their angst and misery and feelings of low self-esteem and like anxiety drives them to be successful. There's a lot of people out there that do that, and some good stress is good to drive behavior, no question, right? However, that's not a long sustaining thing, nor is it as impactful. It isn't. After a while, that wears you down. And so when people come at you with, well, happiness, that's not a question you should even be asking. That tells me that person's not very happy. And also tells me that person's not very effective in that area. Okay. Because you can be more effective when you have feelings of gratitude and happiness. All right. In your relationship, what's the point of a relationship if it doesn't make you feel better as you function in the world? If I feel worse in my relationship most of the time, and that's my standard for my relationship, why am I in that relationship? So I can be a father to some kids so I can be a terrible father because I'm not happy to a couple of kids that I've committed to. So I can be a terrible husband. Right? Because that's what the result is, right? If you're not happy, your relationship should be complementing your life and allowing your relationship is not the value you provide to the world. The relationship that you have, your romantic relationship, your sexual relationship, the family that you have, these are things that are part of your life and a part of you as you're leading, moving forward and accomplishing things. If you are unhappy in that, that's a problem. If your girl is unhappy, and here's another thing, if your girl is unhappy in that relationship, and I'm not talking mad at you today, I'm not talking even mad at you or unhappy for a couple months. A girl might do a couple months of unhappiness, but I'm talking about a sustained unhappiness. She's an unhappy person who's now in a relationship with you and she's unhappy with you. Well, you're going to have a miserable time, number one. Number two, the chances of that ending are so much greater. After a point, what's the point? You know what I mean? And so yeah, it's just you have to have a general feeling of satisfaction and happiness in the relationships you're in. And part of having frame is being able to create that. And part of selecting a good partner is to select somebody who's capable of being a happy person on her own. If you pick up a miserable person, or if you are a miserable person, your relationship's not going to make you into a better person. You know what I mean? You're just going to take that misery into the relationship. And so, anyways, let's go back to the clip and we'll comment more. Hopefully, it's making sense.
What you want to have in your marriage is, I would say, first and foremost, like a scrupulous honesty. And I don't just mean that you tell each other the truth, because you can be brutal with the truth. I mean the kind of honesty that's devoted towards thriving in love, you know? And you want to act nobly in your relationship. You want to be reliable and productive and generous and
just throwing some values out there. They're not bad. They're good.
And then if you're lucky,
but if you're lucky,
now and then, you might be happy.
You might.
And you might have a clear enough conscience so that in those rare moments where you are truly happy, you can also enjoy it without guilt. And so you aim at something a lot higher than happiness, and then you welcome it if it deigns to land on you for brief moments of time.
All right. So that is horrible, horrible take. All right. And I don't even dislike Jordan Peterson, but that is a horrible take. Not that being brutally honest. See, and this is where you have to look in between the lines. All right. Because he says good things, you know, brutal honesty with your partner, having goals and stuff that are beyond the relationship, having goals that are just beyond happiness are important. You know, I'm not saying that your only goal should be hedonistic happiness. You probably wouldn't even get married if that was the case. You would just be, you know, running through girls and partying and, you know, doing a bunch of drugs and eat, like whatever, right? You're just living a short, low value hedonistic life if just feeling good was the only measure. So I'm not saying that. That's a binary way of thinking, either this or that. And that's what stupid people do. So don't do what stupid people do. Let's think around this a little bit, right? You should have, he says true things. You should have goals. You should have things that are beyond just happiness. However, happiness needs to be a standard for the relationship or it will end. Okay. And this idea of, well, if I do all the right things just for a little crumb of happiness, then maybe then I need to be grateful for that crumb. That is like, you know, please, oh wife, may I have a crumb of pussy? You know, like, oh, it's my birthday. May I have the blowjob? You know, like it's like, let me have that crumb of affection and support and sexual gratification in this dutiful marriage I'm stuck in, right? Like, and this gets pushed out as like good advice. It's fucking terrible. It's terrible advice. Okay. You're not going to have a happy wife if that's the paradigm. You might have a dutiful wife for a while until it no longer serves her. And I'll tell you what, if I had, you know, $10 for every client I've talked to who was in a Christian marriage for years with children, who made good money and who had built this good life, who was stuck with a woman who didn't desire him, wasn't happy, didn't care. He did all of the right things only to be stuck with somebody who treats him like a slave, who treats him like a useless human being, even though these guys were doctors and pilots and lawyers and business people. Like, these are people who are high value people. You know how many high value men I have consulted with, I've done counseling for, who did the right things, dude. And they were Christian, some of them Muslim, all right, some of them Jewish too. I've met all three of the big Abrahamic religions, that fit this example. They followed all of the right things from what they were told, and they're valuable dudes. Like, they provide a lot of value in the world. Fucking miserable, dude. They're miserable, and their wives are miserable. They don't love them, and they end up cheating. They end up taking half their shit when it is convenient for them. They take the fucking ball and they run with it, and they cry and talk about how they're just not happy, and they're just not in love. They're not happy. And, they feel really bad for breaking up the family. They're just not happy. Right. And that's the reason that they go, and everyone supports it. I don't know if Jordan Peterson would, but all of the the church meets them with open arms. Well, you shouldn't, they'll advise not to divorce, but once that happens, boy, it's, well, the Lord forgives you. Come on in, and we're going to try to help you find happiness in the Lord, and of course, in another dude's dick and whatever, right? I mean, that's what it is. And so and I'm not saying all Christianity is bad. I mean, like, again, there's going to be variances per person giving the advice. And I think Christianity is generally good. I do think religion can be generally good for people. Okay. But in this sense, though, like, this happened again, it's appealing to the female sensibilities, and it's empowering women. Good. Anything that reduces power, bad. So, hey guys, if you're going to be saddled in a miserable relationship, that's okay, because your goals are greater than happiness. Well, that empowers the girl to marry a guy who will provide all of the transactional needs. And then if she's just not happy, once those needs are met, Brafalt's law, she's out of the relationship. And that's, divorce rates are 75%. Women don't endure through unhappiness like that long term. Now, when a woman desires her man, though, she will endure through unhappiness for a very long time. Not saying she should. All right. But if she's been alpha widowed, if that guy is the pinnacle guy that, or at one time was the pinnacle guy for her, for all the guys she's been with. Like, if that's her best, that dude is her best, she could be unhappy because of, maybe he's a dick. Maybe he's a drug addict. Maybe he's, doesn't make good money and doesn't care about it, but does other things, though, that it's all subjective, that are, alpha to her. Like, maybe he's abusive. Like, there could be a lot of reasons that she's totally miserable, but she'll stick by that guy's side. And a lot of the counselors, people who work in marriage counseling therapy, they see that side of it a lot. They see a lot of guys who are just total dickheads and totally, don't care. And the woman is there sticking by that guy's side, but she's sticking by the guy's side a lot of times because she doesn't have other options. Big part of it. And there's that element of desire. She doesn't perceive other options, so she feels a bit trapped, but there's that element of desire for her partner. But when that desire isn't there, and the guy does everything for her, it sends a message to her hypergamous mind that she's better than he is. She loses desire, and the desire's lost. The guy could be doing all of the right things, all of the love languages, making good money, taking care of the kids, giving her girls' nights, giving her money, giving her things for her weird hobbies. Sure, you want this hobby that's going to cost me, thousands of dollars a month. I'm giving it all to you. And then she just divorces and takes the ball. Right. So this idea of unhappiness is bullshit. Let me tell you guys, life is too fucking short for you to go through it being unhappy. Now, I'm not saying you exit your relationship as soon as you have an unhappy day. But what I'm saying is that you have frame. Let me point you to my frame series that is dropping every week now over at the new channel. Let me point you to some other videos I've done here on this channel on frame. Frame you create the environment in your relationship of general satisfaction and happiness. You pick the right girl to be in that with you. not being miserable in your marriage, not being miserable in your relationship is a criteria that needs to be there. It's a requirement. I'm not saying it is the only goal you should have for your marriage or your life, but I'm saying it is a requirement. Like, it is a preliminary, you know what I mean? When you're looking at vetting a girl out, you have certain things that are like, this is a criteria, or we're not getting a relationship, right? Your general happiness, her general happiness, and by that I mean feeling good about your partner, desiring your partner, feeling good together, and also having gratitude, because those things go hand in hand, right? Being grateful for the things you do have with your partner, that needs to be a general requirement. That is to get your fucking foot in the door as far as making a relationship long term. If you're not happy with your partner, those of you who want to get married or have children, if you're not happy with your partner, okay, most of the time, at least 9 out of 10, all right, do not get married to that person. Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? If you're in a marriage and you're not 9 out of 10 and she's not 9 out of 10 happy, you know, like generally happy. I'm not saying it has to be perfect, because you need to work on stuff sometimes. If it's not that way, like at least most of the time, you need to fix that problem. And if you can't fix it, don't end your life over a relationship. Just get out of it. You know, there's something wrong. Now, I'm not saying get out of the relationship early. Some people don't endure through hardship like they should because they're weak. And that's men and women today can be very weak and they don't endure through things. You need to be able to endure through hardship, but I'm not saying you give your life up for that thing either necessarily. You can give your life up for a lot of things, but not for a relationship that's not happy or working out. I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's crazy talk. All right. And so this paradigm that Jordan Peterson's putting out, it's wrong. All right. It's fundamentally wrong, because the relationship will not survive. And even if it does, to me, that's even bigger failure. Like, if you're in an unhappy relationship that's unhappy most of the time for like 30 years, you've wasted your life, dude. You know, I've seen these relationships where some of them catastrophic. And a lot of times it's the girls that are sticking with the guys too, where the guy is just a horrible guy. We're talking, you know, drugs, alcohol, leaving, having other families, you know what I mean? Cheating, like does not give a fuck. That girl is just sticking around, dude, and like 10 years, 20 years in. That's a failure. That's a failure of your life, let alone the relationship. Okay. But no, we're going to endure and be I'm sure Jordan Peterson wouldn't say she should endure that. Right. But I'm putting words in the guy's mouth here, but like, this is the problem. Like, this idea of, well, I'm going to just suffer and eventually, no. All right. Periods of suffering. Sure. When you're working through stuff, when there's hardship, you know, if you're poor, broke because your money's not together, or if you take a big L, you might suffer 6 months. You might suffer even a year of dealing with financial hardship. But you know what? Your relationship partner should make that easier, better for you. If she's not, or you're not making it better for her, why are you together? You know what I'm saying? Fix it or get out. Okay. So this is bad advice, right? But people will follow it. And all it does is support for these guys to get in these fucking relationships where they're in it and doing their best and trying, and their lives are fucking miserable. And they're just in these situations destroying their own life. They can't even enjoy their own success. A lot of these guys are very successful sometimes. All right, let's go back to it. So that's a bad paradigm. Happiness is not the main goal necessarily. I can say that your main goal is the value that you have for yourself and the value you provide to the world. Okay. And your relationships should be in support of that. Okay. However, happiness in the general sense, is a requirement. Okay. It is a requirement to be generally happy. So actually, let's get into what that looks like. Before I continue on with the video, I want to give you guys the 3 pillars right now. Okay. So 3 pillars of what's going to make a relationship a success, right? This is what these guys miss. This is what the trad cons, this is what the Daily Wire pundits, this is what they oftentimes miss. Okay, is that pillar number one is attraction and desire. All right. And so you have to have, desire. Okay. That is the foundation. That's where it starts. That's that genuine burning desire. Nobody talks about that from the tradcon circles because it's this idea of being like this dutiful wife, dutiful husband. It's a very transactional model of relationships. And I'm not saying they just don't touch on this enough. They don't touch on it like it's a pillar. Look, you need to be her best that she's ever been with, and she needs to see you that way. And you need to desire your partner as a man. You need to desire her and sexually want to be with her, okay? And also emotionally, and also the other things non-sexual. You have to desire her and to want to be with her like long term. You have to see her as that person, right? And then you have to do the work in the relationship to maintain that desire. All right. She should be wanting to bang you 15 years into a marriage and still see you as the number one. You should still be wanting her, even when she gets old and age starts catching up. You should be able to have marriage goggles, as we've called it, where your neurochemical system sees her as hot, even as she ages. If you're doing the long-term relationship thing, this is what you need to have. And that desire needs to be there. It's not an accident. That's another thing. Desire is not this fucking accident. All right. Yes, it's part of our genetic wiring. So there is a certain amount of, there's sort of, it's there, it's not. There's a certain amount of that. But I mean, if you show up as not your best and you're out of shape and you're socially uncalibrated, you're bad at texting, to reference last week's video. Okay. You're bad at, you smell weird. You're not dressed right. Is she going to desire you? No. All right. If you do a 90-day boot camp workout program, get a wardrobe makeover, smell better, learn how to talk to people, learn how to text people, and then you show up. Do you think the desire might be there? Well, it might be. All right. So desire is not an accident. Just because it's based in instinct and you can't negotiate necessarily attraction, desire is still something that can be built. Desire is still something that you put effort into, whether you're picking up a girl or whether you're in a relationship long term. And she needs to be doing the work to be desirable. The frame of your relationship needs to be that she is always maintaining herself to be the most desirable person she can be for you. And you need to be doing the same thing. This is a massive pillar. Okay. Without desire and without maintenance of desire, everything else is difficult. Everything is in the toilet. When two couples show up to marriage counseling, they start having their negotiations over their bullshit. It's all bullshit because the desire's gone. If you work on the desire, all of that other bullshit doesn't matter as much, you see? And so a lot of advice and this is what the red pill does get right, okay? Which a lot of guys are, negative on red pill right now. This is what it gets right, is the desire matters. And you have to do desirable behaviors. You have to do behaviors that will make you more attractive, and you have to take care of your sexual market value so you're desirable, even if you're married. Like, that's part of the effort you need to put into your relationship. Pillar number one is desire. I'm not saying, again, is that the most important thing? Well, I don't know, but I do know this. It's a requirement. Just like happiness, generally speaking, is a requirement, or your relationship's going to fall apart. What makes happiness happen? Well, desire. Usually it's part of it. Desire is a requirement. You could be the most great, fun guy to get along with, but if she doesn't desire you, has no attraction towards you, she's going to be wishing she was with somebody else, right? Things that you say, your little jokes, your little quirks are going to be annoying to her because she doesn't desire you. You see, if she desires you, all of a sudden, that little weird thing that you do and that unattractive thing that you do, maybe slightly unattractive, is cute to her now, you see. And so maintaining desire, that is a pillar, okay? And then the traditional Daily Wire, they get it wrong all the time. They don't put that as at the forefront. It is. I don't care. You're not going to say magic words in front of the Lord and Savior and all your family, okay, at the church and say, I'm married now. And now somehow that negates the fact that you need desire in order to have a successful marriage and a successful relationship. There's no magic to this. All right. You want to look at it from a religious perspective for those who are listening, who are theists, who believe in a religion, follow a church. I'm a theist myself. Okay. So I'll speak to you guys right now. Look, God made you a certain way, and God made you and made her to have these mechanisms of desire. And these mechanisms used the wrong way or not maintained will destroy the relationship. In other words, desiring other people, desiring to get out of it, not desiring each other. But these mechanisms are also the thing and the key to your happiness. All right. Desire, we can break it down scientifically into the oxytocin, the vasopressin, the dopamine of, wanting to make things happen for your partner, the serotonin when you're cuddling or chilling and the comfort there, right? All of those good, happy chemicals neurologically in your brain are designed for you to have healthy attachment with a partner. Not maintaining desire means that those happy chemicals no longer associate with your partner. And she no longer associates you as the source of those happy chemicals. And she starts looking to get those happy chemicals someplace else, or she sits in her misery, wondering what happened, why she's not having any happy chemicals. And that'll lead to the destruction of the relationship one way or the other. Desire is a pillar, ladies and gentlemen, for like the two ladies that listen to me. All right. I will debate this all day long with anybody over at the Daily Wire. I will debate this all day long with anybody who's traditional conservative who disagrees, and I will win this debate. Okay. Desire is a pillar. It's a requirement. Now, the other two pillars, one of them is trust. All right. You need to be able to trust her loyalty. Okay. She needs to have trust in your leadership. All right. And that's demonstrated through competence and it's demonstrated through communication. So on the one side, desiring you is there, but for it to maintain the happiness, the trust has to be there too. Just like, push pull, just like desire and comfort, tension and comfort. The desire is the tension, the trust part is the comfort. All right. And so in order for her to be able to fulfill her role in the relationship, she has to trust you. In order for you to feel good about fulfilling your role and to even be committed to her, you have to trust her at least, right? In a lot of ways. And that trust is built through your competence first. So it's not just telling her the things, it's being competent, and it's built through your communication. All right. How you communicate that. The Luca format that I've given you here for free. These things are going to save your ass. All right. And then the third thing, which I do talk about in this video that's going to drop at 3:00. So make sure you go watch that over at the other channel, is it's only like 7 minutes long. Okay. Is power exchange. All right. Power exchange is a requirement. Okay. There is power that comes to the relationship with both men and women, and there has to be a good power exchange. Power exchange can be described as leader subordinate behaviors. Guys being a good leader, the woman's being a good support, right? Generally speaking, most relationships, that's how it is, and that's a requirement. All right. Nobody talks about these pillars. They might talk about the trust part, because that is, what is that? That's the trust and the communication and the competence, right? Those things are empowering to the woman. Okay. So trust, part of this 3-pillar thing, is what's empowering. Like that gives a woman a sense of power, right? Is she's not just going with anybody's You know, she's not just giving power up in a power exchange to someone she doesn't trust, right? And so that means the guy has to do the good behaviors, the right behaviors to be trustworthy, and you know, those things are empowering, and they make a woman safer. They give her power. The trust aspect of it does. Whereas the desire part, okay, could take away her power, because she could go with somebody that is not a trustworthy partner, but she wants to be with and desires sexually, desires emotionally, right? So that's why desire is not promoted quite so much, but trust is. Power exchange, forget about it. There is no discussion about power exchange in most of these circles, because they don't want you to think that there is one. They just say it's ignored. If we start talking about power exchange, it makes a lot of women uncomfortable, you know, because women are conditioned today not to trust men. So these are all things that are there, right? But those are your 3 pillars. I'll go through these comments in a second. I had some more to share. So let's go back to the video. Secrets to a successful marriage. Let's let Jordan here finish, or maybe we'll. All right, so we're going to skip ahead.
Divorce Italian style is when you murder your husband or wife, because there's no other way to get out of the marriage. You are in it. And I actually think this is a very important thing. I mean, I'm half joking.
Michael knows.
I'm half joking. If I ever end up separated in my marriage, it will be at knife point by my wife. It will not be, because I think if
I could take this clip out of context and slam them, but I'm not going to. All right. Obviously, sorry about commitment at all costs. Listen, people do need to be more enduring in their relationships and not so quick to discard. I wouldn't say murder, okay, or whatever. His little analogy is a bit extreme. It's somewhat joking. I know I get all that, right? But I mean, that's not a terrible point. But we could take it out of context, make him look like a real dickhead. I'm not going to do that. He'll do that to himself here in a minute.
If you both go into a marriage agreeing on what it is, on what the institution is, and you say, look, we're in it, we're not going to leave it. This is, no matter how terrible and miserable it might seem at times, we're just going to be in it, for better or for worse. Yeah. That gives you a level of comfort and security and true freedom that will allow you to weather those storms. And you also don't need to pursue selflessness exactly. In a way, you're sort of pursuing the opposite. You're pursuing a sort of selfishness in that you are viewing your spouse as part of your flesh. A man and a woman leave their families. They come.
All right. So now he's going to give a lot of more or less religious kind of isms, right? That I don't know that. So how practical some of these are, but it gets worse though. It hasn't quite gotten terrible yet. Look, good advice, taking breakup off the table until breakup needs to be on the table. All right. That's general good advice. It's not good advice to have no accountability for yourself and the other person. Being trapped. Let me take this off of screen share for a second. Being trapped in a marriage, okay, is not good. Being trapped in a relationship is a poor framework for a successful relationship. I'm actually coming at it from a different angle that I know is 100% true. You need to fucking listen to it. These guys don't. So look, the mistake of traditional conservatives and the Daily Wire kind of paradigm of the guys there is that they have a safe world theory around the traditional marriage. They think that if we say the magic words, we have the traditional marriage and we're now in this bubble. And if we say words like forever and she's the one and, you know, God bless this thing and all this stuff. Look, I'm not even taking God out of the marriage here when I say this. I'm going to say, though, humans are flawed. So again, speaking to the theists now, those of you who are more atheist or whatever, don't give a shit about what I'm about to say. But for you theists, okay, who believe that there is a God, all right, it's not taking God out of the relationship. It's recognizing that you're a flawed human being. You cannot arrogantly know that God bless your relationship and your union in a sense. And this whole idea it's just, it takes the accountability away from the husband and the wife, or the two relationship partners. It's, you can believe that, your union is blessed, but that doesn't mean that it can't break up. And that doesn't mean that it can't end. And there's this whole, wow, we get in a whole philosophical argument because the Catholics have annulment for this reason. God can't make a mistake, etc. Right? But it's like, the thing is, it's like, you have an accountability to make things happen. We have a free will. Same reason why, like, most people of the Christian faith don't believe in predestination. Well, God just sort of, picks who's going to heaven and who isn't, right? Like, no, there's a free will involved. And so if you don't believe that people are predestined, if you believe that people are destined to go to a certain place in the afterlife, that's already figured out at the day of birth or whatever, like, and their free will has no consequence. If that's your belief, well, I mean, I don't really have much to say to that. Okay. I can't really debunk. That's like me trying to debunk a flat earther. Like, if you believe the earth is flat, sweet. Like, there's nothing I can say, no proof I'm going to bring that's going to help you out. Right. But if you understand and you believe, like, the Christian perspective, or Muslim or Jewish, that there's free will, that people have free will, free choice, and they can make good or bad choices, that means that you have accountability. Why wouldn't that accountability apply to your marriage or your relationships? Obviously it does. There's no magical world. All of a sudden, everything was free will in every other area of your life, except for the marriage, though. That is where the one person was made in a factory in heaven for you, and your job is to find them, and then God says magic words, and now everything is cool, and you have no accountability. That's fucking crazy. This one-itis shit is poison, okay? And this predestined marriage shit is crazy talk, and also poison, because it takes away the accountability of the individuals to show up to the relationship and make things happen, and to do the work. Both people, it's work to stay together for a number of years and to continue to thrive and be happy. You have to work on yourself, and you have to show up and it's happy work, should be good, happy work, but it is definitely work, and there is accountability. Without accountability, relationships fail. Your woman will destroy that relationship if she has no accountability, period. And so this whole idea of like this the only way we're breaking up is if we're killed, and like, because, the Lord blessed us, right? This is a very Catholic perspective. I mean, my hat's off to the Catholics for not divorcing so easily, right? Not breaking up relationships so easily. But I've seen so many relationships stick together that probably shouldn't, right? Abusive ones on either side, guy or girl, emotionally abusive, mentally, physically abusive, abusive to children, poor family environments, coming from Christian communities because of this idea. It's absolute shit. You have to be the right person, and she has to be the right person. There has to be accountability. Now, here's what leads to success, though: not feeling trapped. So if you're not trapped and she's not trapped, that shit could end tomorrow. It makes you more grateful for what you have, and it makes you fight harder to keep it on both sides. Okay. It doesn't mean from your spiritual perspective things aren't blessed. Okay. That would be, there's a lot of blessings you have. That's your gratitude. But there's a lot of accountability you need to have too. And that's the idea and the understanding of the truth that she could end it tomorrow. You could end it tomorrow. An accident could happen to end it for both of you. Things are not forever as they are today. And so you need to work and put in the work to make things thrive and go in the direction you want. And this shit with this duty shit, and then this, okay, like, we've said magic word, we can't ever break up. That's a fantasy land. This dude is in a fantasy land. And you know how many guys had come to me after divorces because they believed in the fantasy land, and they found out it almost killed them almost caused them to do something real bad to themselves when they were handed paperwork and walking papers from a wife that they've been enduring and slaving and trying to impress and trying to do all the work for. But they also believed that, they believed that this was a forever situation. Someone sold them, whether it's from the Daily Wire or from their church, someone sold them the lie that this thing's going to be forever because of magic, right? And that magic is, the God of your religion in this case. I'm not saying the God of your religion's not real. I'm saying the magical thinking you have isn't. The magical thinking that gets told to people is not. And so what happens? Big fucking failure, man. That's what happens. All right. And Disney lied to us. Yes. Not just Disney. Disney's lying to everybody now with how woke they've gotten, but your churches too. And they don't mean to lie. It just is what it is, right? All right, let's get through this final piece here. Actually, let me go into comments here. We got stuff. Okay. James says, marriage goggles is true. My wife is not as pretty as she was, but I still find her attractive. Yes. Yep. And so that is true, man. The marriage goggles is true because it's not just some weird concept. It's actually a true concept because your oxytocin attachment to her and you've associated her as your source of sexual needs, sexual gratification, and your attachment to her based on those neurochemicals makes you see your girl in a biased way, in a positively biased way, as prettier than she actually is. This is important to know. And it's also a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's, if you're married to somebody and you're going to spend a life with that person, you want to be a little bit in that fantasy land. When she's old and gray and you're old and gray, you guys want to be able to see each other as that attractive person, even when, you start to lose some of that naturally through aging. That's a protective measure that we've evolved with. It allowed guys to stick around with women when they've gone through the trials of pregnancy and different things, right? As things change and happened, right? And still want to take care of the baby maker, meaning her, and of course the children, right? So this is an evolved mechanism, particularly in our men, all right, particularly in us guys. And it's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with it. It's important to know it exists though, because if you have some girl discarding you, and you see her as the best thing on earth and that she's the most attractive woman you'll ever get, you're probably wrong. All right. If you start asking your friends about that, and if they tell you the truth, they're going to be like, nah, dude, she's like average. You can do better, bro. Like, you know what I mean? And they're probably right. It's probably not a cap. All right. So it's important to know it. Even if you're getting discarded, it's important to know you have that bias. That's just in your head. So let's see, what do we got here? T Diamond, one of my female listeners, says in modern relationships, genuine desire is temporary. See, no, let me keep reading. It seems most people are constantly shopping the market to upgrade. They're not yours, just your turn. Yeah. That's because there's no frame established in those relationships. You know what I mean? That's in a sense transactional too. Desire can be part of the transaction. But I'm not talking about, there's a difference between a relationship based in genuine desire and a relationship where desire is just part of the transaction of that relationship. In other words, she's with him partially because he's attractive and hot and he fucks her good. And he's with her because she's hot. And then once that is compromised, then they go their separate ways. You know what I mean? That's where desire is part of this transactional framework. Being with somebody because you're attracted to them, whatever, like it's part of the transactional framework in that sense. But when it's not a part of the transactional framework, when desire is the foundation, all right, that's far different. That's what we need to strive for. And that's developing healthy attachments to our partners. So when you develop a healthy attachment to somebody, that's where your relationship can be based in desire, not just having desire for them sexually or emotionally or whatever it may be. That is part of this transaction. You see, it's no longer is the juice worth the squeeze conversation with yourself. With herself. It points to, I really have these emotions for this person, right? And that's what we want. So let's see here. All right, we got some good conversations going on. I don't see anything highlighted for me to touch up on, but those are some good you know, yeah, you guys are having some good dialogue in the chat. That's cool. Let's continue. All right, so we'll let this play itself out here. We'll go back to the video file. Whoops, not that one. I always press the wrong buttons. All right, back to the share screen over here. All right, so let's finish. Let's see what else Mr. Knowles has to say.
Together in one flesh. I think of my wife, sweet little Elisa, truly as a part of my flesh. And so even when I do all sorts of very annoying behaviors and Elisa yells at me and she says, Mike, do the dishes, go in there, clean up your clothing. Why are you doing? You're working too late. Why are you at backstage? I think to myself that this is good. I need to accept this with saintly patience. This is very virtuous to do. This. And that last point that Jordan made, this is very important. That Catholic guilt is so good because in the good times you will be absolutely blissful in your marriage. But in the bad times, and this is true in all aspects of life, you know that suffering can be a sanctifying experience. And if you react to it in a way that is with patience and that is edifying and that is not merely complaining and debasing, that can be a wonderful thing. And even through difficult moments, that will bring you even closer together until your wife kills you in the end. And anyway, you had a good run.
Oh, God, kill me. Okay. All right. Fucking kill me now, dude. Oh, who is this guy, man? For real. I don't really follow him. But that's a pretty horrible take. And I don't know, did you hear his little imitation of his wife nagging on him and all this stuff? I mean, ooh. That sounds, if he's, how much is that kidding and how much is that hyperbole and how much is that real, dude? But no, like, and that's the thing, man. Like, you look at these situations, you look at how they fall apart, right? And it's this idea again of duty and that you have to sort of suffer through the misery, but there's no discussion about frame and there's no discussion about desire, right? And so, looking at what's that guy's name now? The guy with the did a video clip. This tells you how much I don't. He was on this. What was his name? Here, we'll throw him up here because he's actually in this. This is back when he was cool with the Daily Wire. What was this guy? All right, so we got his thing. That was Candace Owens. This dude. Who's that guy again? This guy.
Because. Or at least to channel it in a healthy way.
I'm drawing a blank, man.
Because a lot of times, especially when you bring kids into the mix, you get into this competitive.
You guys know who he is?
Where it's like, well, I did this around the house, and I was up with.
Who is that? I don't remember. Why am I not remembering his name? Cuck McGee. That's good. His name is Cuck McGee. Yeah, he's the guy who it'll come. Steven Crowder. Jesus. Anyway, like he's the guy got thrown off the Daily Wire now, so he's not even a part of it, right? But like, or Matt Walsh. Fuck, not Steven Crowder. Matt Walsh. Thank you. His name was Matt Walsh. So Matt Walsh with I did a whole video on it, with the drama with his wife and stuff. That's a great example of what happens when you follow, dude, a great example. So what happens is Matt Walsh guys, they're following these ideas, forgetting about key core concepts like frame, which is your most important concept, desire, okay, and a power dynamic. I mean, trust is prevalent as a thing, but now they're negotiating trust and fighting over trust and trying to take power from one another. So you have this thing on camera, and his camera, his wife files divorce, calls him this narcissistic abuser. I don't know that he's clinically that person. But what do you have though? It's a thing where he's become the frustrated chump, screaming, yelling at his wife for not doing her duties, because we have this duty and you're not doing your duty. This is marriage is about duty. It sounds like a lot of duty to me. Right. And so you have this guy just beta-tizing himself and screaming and crying, like losing his shit because, his wife's not doing enough transactional, like not doing her duty as a wife. And it's like, dude, you've lost frame. She doesn't desire you. She doesn't desire to be with you. So she doesn't desire to do her duty. That's why desire is important. That's why frame is important. It's not a negotiation. All right. And you can have all, as a man, you can have all the idealistic thinking you want and go to church all day long and have all the principles, because that's what you are. I promise you, a woman won't do that. She is going to have her feelings, and she's going to follow what her feelings tell her. And she is going to fight for you, even if it's through passive aggressive behavior for power, when she doesn't have the feelings to want to follow you, when she doesn't want to do the things to make you happy, to, that doesn't want to do the things to complement your life, because she doesn't have desire for you like she used to, or it's just not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze anymore for her in that transactional relationship. You're not going to be able to scream and cry, stomp your feet, fight her, negotiate, debate her, like he was trying to debate her on video pretty much, and tear. You're not going to, you'll just be seen as you're an emotionally abusive guy for expecting things out of her, right? And I'm not saying he's definitely not wrong for expecting things out of his wife. However, he's wrong with his approach to the relationship entirely, to include with how he talked to her. And look how he just got crucified for that. You know what I mean? Because the paradigm is wrong. All right. These guys are talking about duty and just suffering through a nagging wife. Fuck that shit. If your wife is talking to you like that and being that person, she doesn't have desire for you. She doesn't even have respect for you. And that's where you have to reel that shit in and be willing to leave the relationship if it comes down to it. But it should never get to that point if you're following all of the right formula, right things. If the game is right, the frame is right. It should never get to that point, and it should never, and if it ever does, it should never be acceptable. And in fact, this is a great time now to say again, get on my list. And actually, if you need some more work, sign up, schedule an interview for my year-long mastermind and seduction, course material plus coaching. So you can spend some time with me to get the right communication skills, the right mental framework, so that this kinds of shit is not happening to you. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to turn in, you won't be a Matt Walsh or some other version of that, and I'm not trying to slam on the guy either, or kick him when he's down. It's just, that is an example of what wrong looks like. That's what losing frame looks like. That's what not considering desire as a pillar looks like. And that's what these duty relationships and duty marriages look like. Accepting disrespect, accepting, nagging, shitty behavior in your relationship from your wife because you're married, and you say, and now she has no accountability and you can't easily exit. Like, these are not good things. Do not set yourself up as a slave. Do not set yourself up as a guy who's a slave to her emotions and to her stuff. And where you're not working on the relationship and having frame, right? Like, don't set yourself up to lose the frame, lose desire. All right. You never set yourself up that way. Okay. And that's something that they're not illustrating. Well, it's probably a good time for me to break. So thanks again for watching. Now, in about 20 minutes, go over to Apex Inner Game, watch that video, hit a like, subscribe over there, helps me out. All right, till next time.